The UK has a huge problem and it's about to get worse. We're kind of spoilt for choice today with news coming out because there's been a lot. Two big stories actually that have broken just today. Pretty huge. The UK has kind of done it again with the global leaderboard for the G20 in most of the developed nations. So we'll begin with the biggest story then, and this is that homelessness has now exploded in the UK. In fact, according to the charts, it is so far ahead of all the other countries that it's almost unbelievable. So we've had a lot of news come out about this. We've also had some crime stats on some other things, which we'll come on to very shortly as well. But the main story here today then was out of the BBC earlier, who are having a crisis today by the looks of things. But homelessness higher than official figures, research shows. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, really, this one. So we'll begin with this article, and then we'll go through all the things that are going on right now. It's pretty crazy. The number of homeless people in England is higher than official government data suggests. So remember that when we go through the official stats shortly. This is according to the charity Crisis. They say that around 189,000 families and individuals who face the worst forms of homelessness, such as rough sleeping, sofa surfing, and living in tents, were not included in the official statistics. Official data then, this is government data, is based on people, ready for this, going to the government and declaring themselves as homeless. So it says they've got to declare themselves as homeless to a local authority, and they said that at that point the government will sort of register them as homeless and they'll go on the statistics. Well, Crisis says that this just doesn't happen. I mean, you read the report, it says, why would people go to the government or the council and say, excuse me, hi, I just want to register myself as homeless? It's like, it wouldn't happen. So these stats are even more crazy than, in fact, I'll show you a couple of the stats just so you can see here, and then we'll go through this, because I don't think you're going to believe these statistics. Hold on, let me get you the first stats here then. So this, for some context, was our world in data. This was the homelessness rate in 2023. So here's the UK here then. This is living in the streets or public spaces in pink. And then green is temporary accommodation or shelters. So homelessness in the UK back in 2023 was the highest. France was... It's interesting when you look at some of these countries and what's going on in some of these countries, and you can kind of see why in some regards. UK, France, Germany, Ireland, etc. These are some of the wealthiest countries. You've got New Zealand here, the United States, Australia, Canada. These are some very wealthy countries who are on this list. Look at the bottom though. Who do we have? Japan, almost, well, it is zero. Their rate is almost zero. People make fun of countries like Mexico and places like that. Well, look, they are right down there with some of these countries. So let's move on to the next stat then. This was by gender as well. So it actually shows that women were 2/3, and this goes back to 2022, were 2/3 of the people homeless in the UK, and men were 1/3. So you can see this across the scale here. And the UK is obviously the worst for this. New Zealand is close, it's about 50-50, but the UK, 2 out of 3 homeless people are women. And then when we come to here's the G20, actually you don't need to see this, it's the G20 countries that I went through to sort of calculate all of this for you. So the government says, don't worry everybody, we're investing £1 billion in homelessness services in 2025, a £316 million increase on the previous year. But the charities basically come out and said, well, they've only announced this because of all the things that are coming out today. Before that, they had this target and they said they were going to do it and they didn't do it. So now they've said they're going to do it before the end of the year. That's convenient that they're finding all this money that they say they haven't got, but either way. So the charity says the number of people facing the worst forms of homelessness has grown by 20% just in the last couple of years. It now stands at 300,000 people. Now, when you think of the size of the UK and you think how many people are homeless, it's staggering. It's a rich country as well, or it was a rich country. It's getting poorer by the day, of course. This is also due to people in unsuitable temporary accommodation. When someone declares as homeless to the local authority, they can be placed in temporary accommodation while they search for a permanent home. Unsuitable accommodation can include bed and breakfast, properties far away from friends and family. They say 18,600 families are living in unconventional accommodation, such as cars, sheds and tents. And then I thought it was a bit weird the BBC ran with this story. Isra, who came to the UK in 2009, aged 6, says her family was housed in unsuitable temporary accommodation. And it gives a big story about her here. And, they're talking about how it was a disgrace that she came from Iraq with her family and she was put in a bed and breakfast and all this away from her friends and family. Look, guys, I'm not being funny here, right? I've said this a lot of times. If I also have to put myself in people's position, right? If I'm coming from a war-torn country and I get put up in a bed and breakfast or something else in the United Kingdom, or I got put up in the US or Australia, Canada, the last thing I would be doing is complaining to the BBC or the government saying, you've put me up in this bed and breakfast away from my friends and family. It's like, I don't understand what goes through the mind of some of these people that get given refuge in the West. It's baffling. And even worse is that the BBC does these big stories about it, saying how what a disgrace it was that her family was put in this bed and breakfast. I mean, they honestly think people are stupid, I think. And a lot of people actually are, because they say, yeah, terrible. Bed and breakfast. Gosh, food and accommodation when they're in Iraq, in a war-torn country, not near their friends. Gosh, must be terrible. It's like, get a grip, people, please. Unbelievable. Government data released last month found that 330,000 households were at risk of homelessness in 2024. Labour's election manifesto promised to implement this new strategy, and they didn't do it. Oh, what a surprise. Labour didn't do it. But now they've said they're doing this campaign, which will be in place by the end of the year. A local survey of councils found that 70% had seen an increase in the numbers of people approaching them for assistance in the last year, claiming they were homeless. Now, we got some other statistics here, courtesy of ChatGPT, of course. Let me show you on screen. But this is, I asked it to do the real calculations, because all these government statistics just weren't accurate. So they brought it up for me, and it's the UK. The UK is one of the worst. It actually is the worst. It's 56.1 per 100,000 people. The US is 19.5 per 10,000. Sorry, let me say it again. 56.1 per 10,000. US 19.5 per 10,000. And the reason I find this bizarre is because the UK media has a field day with the USA, and they do all these stories about, oh, look at all the people that are homeless living in their cars in the USA. It's half. In fact, it's less than half of what's happening in the UK. So, again, the hypocrisy of the UK media. Whoa, almost lost the mic there. That's the second time I've done that. The hypocrisy of the UK media. Okay, but you saw my reaction skills. Some of you are like, yeah, I know that. I know, Neil. I know why you got good reaction skills there. UK 56.1, US 19.5, France 48.7, Germany 31.4, Finland 7.9. So you can see the stats. It's night and day with some of these countries. It really is. And the OECD estimates that on average, homelessness across rich countries is about 0.25 of the population, roughly 25 per 10,000. So the UK is more than double that number. Here we go. This is the UK. Here's the USA. It's crazy. It's crazy what's happening. The UK is becoming poorer and poorer all the time. And yet people keep saying, wow, they say to me, wow, you're from the UK. Wow, I'd love to go to the UK, one of the richest countries in the world. And they have this sort of romanticized vision of, they say things like, oh, I saw this movie. What was the movie this person said to me the other day? Put it in the chat, guys. It's that Christmas movie with Hugh Grant and Martine McCutcheon and people like that. Put it in the chat because it's going to bug me. I can't remember it. But anyway, they were like, wow, I really want to go to England because I watched this movie. Everything's so clean. Everything's so posh. And it's just so proper and such a respectable society. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure if you know. Come on, no one's put it in the chat. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going with this. So the other thing was, if you look at, I asked it to correlate and cross-reference migration statistics versus homelessness. And I did this with a couple of AIs, and it's very mixed. Some of them are very woke, and they say, oh, we can't really do that and stuff like that. We can't really cross-reference this. And I asked, I thought I'd ask Gemini, because you know what Gemini is like. So here was Gemini's response. So I wanted to know if there's any correlation between the increase in UK homelessness, here it is, and migration, basically, the number of people coming into the country illegally. So I wanted to know, and I wasn't doing this as a sort of like hard attack on it to say it's all the illegals. I wanted to know if the number of people coming into the country who were not coming in legally was putting pressure on the housing system. This is what I was trying to get to, right? But of course, Gemini and all these other AIs, they don't want to, they instantly assume the worst, and they say, oh, it's racist to ask, things like this, and you should look at it from their point of view. And I'm like, shut up. I'm not asking that. I'm asking if, it's like, there's so many houses being built. I want to know if we're underbuilding houses compared to how many new people are coming in. Is it overwhelming the system? I wanted to know all these things. Just doesn't want to answer the question. But it says, no, there is no direct, straightforward correlation. There is no overlapping correlations. None of the graphs. It's basically saying there's no connection whatsoever, which it just can't be correct, can't be true. Because if there was a housing shortage before all of this started, then surely there must be a housing shortage now. I mean, they're not building enough new houses, and they haven't for a long time, and it's too heavily regulated anyway. So there must be a correlation, but of course, if you start asking these questions, there's something wrong with you for asking the questions, even though it's just basic economics. There's it's gone woke even in economics now. You can't even ask mathematical questions and economic questions without an artificial intelligence trying to tell you that you've got some sort of right-wing bias and bizarre things like this. But let's go on to the next big story then. This has been all week, this operation has been going on. And this is about the Metropolitan Police crackdown, finally, on crimes. They're cracking down on minor crimes, but they're cracking down on crimes all the same. So they've arrested more than 140 people. This is mainly on shoplifting and other crimes, phone theft, going after people on phone thefts. It said the most high-profile, can I read this one out? The most high-profile case was a man filming up women's skirts. Okay, I mean, why they have to highlight that, I'm not exactly sure. It's right throughout this article about this man. Okay. Anyway, so oh my God, and again, it's telling about what the man was doing in specific detail. I don't need to know this, thank you. I know what the concept is. They said then, I got to keep getting past all this stuff about the man filming women. Okay, here we go then. Specialist teams used tech such as live facial recognition to build trust in our communities. I'm not sure about that one. They added, we're continuing to ensure the West End remains the safest and most welcoming place for residents, businesses, and the millions of visitors who come here each month. Okay, do you honestly believe the West End is one of the safest places. I don't know if it's the UK or London. The facts are, this is the facts, the data, you can check this for yourself. The West End is actually one of the most highest crime locations in London. I think Westminster's number one, believe it or not. That's Westminster, the House of Parliament and everything else. Westminster is number one. Where is this? Yeah, I did pull up the stats for you because you've got to see this for yourself. So here was the crime data. And this was July, which is kind of like the peak of when you get the most crimes. This is the West End then. There were 2,000 thefts. 2,098, or well, actually combine them, there's even more, 2,876. Theft from a person, almost 1,000. Other thefts, 725. Shoplifting, 319. All other crime. And I did get some more detailed stats, but it's not on screen now. And I wanted to know the crimes on women, because that's obviously one that I am always tracking and talking about, because I think it's one of the worst possible crimes that needs to be eliminated. And there's an easy way to bring that down massively. But, and that was high. That was incredibly, incredibly high. And it's been rising. But of course, if I do another live stream talking about that, I'm going to get another one-day ban or whatever they do, strike my video. Baffling, this stuff is still going on in today's age. They say, this is where it gets a bit silly, that crimes have fallen by 22 to 24% in the last year. Although, it says shoplifting has hit a record high of 530,000 offences reported to police in the year ending in March. This was a 20% increase on last year, which was 444,000. And here is the graph. And they said that they did great work during 2020, the police say, to bring this down. No, they didn't. What happened here in this period? Lockdowns. This was the lockdowns. Why do you think it fell off a cliff? Because people weren't going out. There were lockdowns. Stores were closed. And as soon as the lockdowns opened again, what happened? Look at this. It shot out of control. I mean, they talk absolute nonsense about all of this. The British retail loses 1.8 billion pounds a year, and they spend another 700 million on security. I mean, I could go on and on and on about all of this, but I also thought this was the weirdest story I've ever seen pop up on my BBC homepage. A pavement was left like a ski jump in London. I'm not joking. This was a massive news. They interviewed people. Here's the pavement here. Look at all these people they're interviewing. This was a big story. Front page of my BBC when I opened it today. That they didn't repair this pavement very well. I swear. I don't know if people are getting less intelligent or these media outlets are doing this deliberately. Are they? I mean, how is that a story? I don't understand. I saw it and I said, how is that a story? It's a pavement, or as you would say, a sidewalk for my American friends, that wasn't done right. Why is this on the front page? We're living in a bizarre world right now, ladies and gents. We really are. We really are. Did anyone say what that movie was called? Love Actually. There we go. Tim said Love Actually. Okay, it's not bothering me anymore. All right. Thanks for watching today. And take care. God bless. Subscribe. See you on the next one.